I don't recall ever being concerned about that. By the time I was aware at all of what either of them were doing politically, my mother, was involved in certain party activities, but she did not hold a position in the Communist Party. Except at one point, I think she was on the... She worked for the Daily Worker, the newspaper of the Communist Party. And she had been a journalist of sorts, involved in Communist Party internal education. But then after the Smith Act trial started, 1949, most of her political work was for the Defense Committee, fundraising and doing work to publicize what was happening in the trials, and then also fundraising to support the families of the men and women who had been indicted, because most of these people were full-time party functionaries, very low wage, but nevertheless, there were still, rent to be paid and food put on the table and so forth. So my mother's activity was around that. I think it was called the Smith Act Families Committee. And in 1952, my dad had been in prison for a couple of years already in Atlanta, and my mother went on a national speaking tour, and I went with her at the age of 10. And part of that was because it coupled with her being able to spend time with her sister and her own mother and father in San Francisco. And that was my first visit to that part of the family and to San Francisco, which I would say probably changed my life, because it was from that visit that I had this incredible draw to San Francisco in the Bay Area, and where I ultimately moved to. But so I was involved, and even then traveling around with my mother and that speaking campaign. Here's my mother now in a spotlight, and in the different towns that we went to, I can recall Chicago, there was New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles. I can't remember how far north, whether we came up to Seattle at that time or not. She may have come up and I did not. But somehow I think Seattle was in the itinerary. And but I didn't have a feeling that she was going to get nabbed for what was going on, which is interesting because the world at that time, I mean, my goodness, let's see, the Rosenberg trials was happening, and I may not have been concerned about my mother, but I was concerned about the world and everything just coming to an end. I mean, this state of anxiety. I can remember being told about one of the family friends. The FBI came and broke down his door, and he was in the bathroom taking a dump. And from that time, and I couldn't have been more than about 7 years old when I heard that story, my fear was going to the bathroom and having the FBI break down the door. It like epitomizes the vulnerability to the powers of the police state in America. So that was part of the undercurrents, that kind of fear and anxiety.